Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Sony Alpha DSLR A350. Here it is, the A350. This camera is very strongly based on Sony's earlier Alpha A200 model. It shares virtually the same body, controls and menu system. It also has the same built-in sensor shift stabilization that provides anti-shake facilities with any lens you attach. And I've got it mounted here with the standard Sony DT 18-70mm kit lens. Now the new A350 has three very important differences over the earlier A200. First is an increase in resolution from 10.2 to 14.2 megapixels. Second is a new live view system which works quite differently to most rival DSLRs, and I'll be showing you that later on in the video. And third, the A350 features a tiltable screen on the back to help you shoot at unusual angles. So there's an awful lot of new features to discuss there, and I'm going to start off by showing you some of the controls. Externally, the A350 greatly resembles the earlier Alpha A200. In the top left corner of the body you'll find a chunky power switch, the mode dial, and a button here on the left side that pops up the internal flash. And you'll notice due to the shorter hinge distance here, the flash doesn't pop up quite as high as many rival DSLRs. On the upper right side of the body you'll find a finger dial, a shutter release, and nice big chunky buttons for adjusting the ISO sensitivity in the drive mode. Here is one of the few differences between the A350 and the A200, a switch that allows you to select between different types of composition, either with the optical viewfinder or with the live view system. Now this is a mechanical switch and I'll be showing you how it works in just a moment, but one of the really neat features of the way Sony's implemented this is that when you switch it to live view, a shutter curtain will close in the viewfinder, preventing stray light from entering. So here we are switched to optical viewfinder, and now to live view, and you'll see the curtains close and now open again when we're using the optical viewfinder. It's really nice that Sony's implemented the system this way. Turning to the back of the body, we'll see one of the other new controls in the A350, the Smart Teleconverter button. This only works in live view mode, so again I'll be demonstrating how it works in just a moment. Further down, the function button here, which allows you to quickly adjust certain popular features, and in the bottom right corner the switch that allows you to activate the built-in super steady shot. Turning to the camera to the side, you'll notice it's got the same four buttons here as the A200, but due to the screen mounting, they're forced around the corner a little here. On the side, a door opens up to reveal ports for remote control and a DC input. The TV output and the USB port are on the other side though. Like the A200, they're actually hiding within the memory card compartment. There's the port there. It's a little inconvenient to have it here behind the door. Here you'll see the memory card format is compact flash. And finally, if I turn the camera upside down to have a look at the battery, you won't be surprised to see it's exactly the same lithium-ion battery as used in the A200. This gives you accurate feedback of exactly how much battery life is remaining as a percentage. And it's also nice that Sony has got a consistent battery here. This is the same battery used in the A200, the A300, the A350 here, and even the higher-end A700 model. The 2.7-inch screen on the back of the A350 is one of the highlights of the camera. For starters, like earlier Alpha DSLRs, when you turn the camera on its side to shoot in the portrait orientation, the information turns with you to always remain upright. Now it's a shame it won't do that in live view mode, but it's nice to still have that facility when you're shooting with the optical viewfinder. Of course, the icing on the cake though is the tilting monitor, which allows you to shoot at unusual angles. First of all, you grab the top of the screen and tilt it forwards until it's pointing downwards. The screen won't tilt all the way down to shoot at very high angles, but it's still helpful when you're shooting over the heads of crowds. Then you grab the bottom of the screen and tilt it outwards until the screen is facing upwards. This allows you to use the camera very comfortably at low angles. The screen may not flip around sideways, either to face the photographer in self-portraits or to fold back on itself for protection, but it's still a very useful facility to have. Live view on the A350 is quick and fuss-free. Just flick the switch at the top of the camera and you're good to go. And notice that when I do switch between the modes, there's no noise or delay of traditional live view systems, and there's a full explanation of how Sony achieves this in our review at the CameraLabs website. Also notice that when I do switch to live view, the shutter closes in the optical viewfinder to prevent stray light from entering. Now let's take a closer look at live view, and you can tell it's live because I'm waving my hand in front of the lens right now. You'll also notice those familiar markings, the same ones you'd see if you were looking through the optical viewfinder, and that's because that's effectively what the live view sensor's doing, so you can't turn those markings off. However, it does mean you get quick autofocus. There you go, ready for action at exactly the same speed as if you were composing with the viewfinder, and that's the great benefit of the Sony system. It doesn't need to drop the mirror and flip it back up again to autofocus. Press the display button, you can overlay shooting information including the battery life in the top left corner. Press it again and you get a live histogram in the bottom left corner. That of course is showing the range of tones in the image. Now unfortunately you can't overlay any other graphics on the screen like an alignment grid because they'd interfere with those focusing marks which are already there, and as I mentioned earlier you can't turn them off. However, you can overlay some settings to change, like the sensitivity. If we switch into the drive mode you can also change that while still maintaining the live view. And here you can see that you can switch between a 2-second and a 10-second self timer, and here are also the various bracketing options. One of the live view features on the A350 is the teleconverter option. This actually magnifies the centre of the screen. Press it once and it magnifies by 1.4 times, press it again and it magnifies by 2 times. Now this is just magnifying the centre of the screen, it's acting like a digital zoom, so if you captured the picture right now, you'd be capturing it at a lower resolution. And unfortunately, due to the way Sony's implemented live view on the A350, you can't use this as a manual focus assistance. However, one of the things you can do in live view is preview the white balance, and this is pretty useful. Let me show you how. I'm going through the different white balance options now until I get to the actual manual colour temperature, and you can see here that as I increase the colour temperature you can see the actual impact that will have on the image. Now this is really useful because it allows you to fine-tune that white balance and actually see what you're going to get on the screen before you take the picture. That's a really very useful feature to have in practice. Now let's exit the white balance mode and also exit the live view mode itself on the A350 to have a look at the normal recording screen. This is the same as the A200, press the display button, you can use smaller fonts there to pack more information on the screen. Notice in the bottom left corner that battery indicator again showing an accurate percentage remaining. Press the menu button, you can have a look through the different menus here, again pretty much identical to what you get on the A200 and also the A300, other than of course the resolution settings at the beginning. Now let's go into playback. Here's a photo that we took earlier, and of course you can magnify here, have a closer look and scroll around the image, and you can see that it's fairly responsive on the A350. Now let's zoom out again and I'll show you what else you can do in playback. Press the display button and we can overlay some shooting information on the screen. Press it again and we'll get those red, green and blue and brightness histograms. And press it once more and we'll get a series of thumbnails along the top. This again is the same as the A200 and even the high-end A700. It allows you to see what pictures are coming up as you scroll through them. The Sony Alpha A350 is certainly a very feature-packed DSLR and one which will tick most of the boxes of any new DSLR buyer. It features very high resolution, built-in stabilisation that works with any lens you attach, live view, and even a tilting monitor on the back that allows you to shoot at unusual angles. In fact, there's very little that this camera doesn't have, so does that make it the ultimate DSLR at its price point? Well, yes and no. On the downside, the A350's continuous shooting speed is relatively modest. At just 2.5 frames per second using the optical viewfinder, you're not going to be capturing very fast action sequences with this camera. Also, due to the way that live view is implemented on this camera, the actual view through the optical viewfinder is a bit smaller than other DSLRs. And speaking of live view itself, it may be quick and fuss-free on the A350, but it's also missing out on a few features that'll frustrate technical photographers. And we got a full rundown of those differences in our full review at the Camera Labs website. In that review you'll also see results taken with the A350 compared to rival models that will show you exactly the good points and the bad points of squeezing 14 megapixels onto a sensor the size that the A350 has. So to find out both the good and the bad about the A350 and how it measures up against the competition, head on over to our full review. You'll find it at www.cameralabs.com.